Welcome back to QAV America, Tony, episode 44. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed, Tony. Any day now, it's going to all come good.
What do you think is going to happen? It'll come good.
Well, we were talking about this on the last show, so, I'm reading lots of different analysis. No one really knows, obviously, what's going to happen here. There are theories that it could be shut down for a long time. There are theories that Trump and Israel are going to bomb Iran into oblivion and the regime will give in or collapse. The regime seems to think it's not going to do that. I read a report that said they can produce 10,000 drones a month in Iran, but that obviously depends on if there's anything left of Iran for them to produce drones in. But we did also talk about the impact to the world of not having oil. Australia's got maybe a month of oil supply. And the impact on global fertilizer trade, about 30% of which also goes through the Strait of Hormuz, what that's going to mean for just economies worldwide, standard of living worldwide. It really does seem that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu jumped into this thinking it was going to be less of a global catastrophe than it could possibly be. We'll see how it plays out, but it's not looking good right now.
No, I mean, our minds always jump to the worst case scenario. All gets turned off and we can't get it refined or whatever. And it's going to be different in the US, and this is a US audience. So we're talking from an Australian point of view, the type of crude that needs to be refined in Asia is at risk, and Asia might stop exporting it even if they get some to refine because they'll need it for themselves. So all that's going to play out. It'll have some impact on the US, because it's going to depress the economy. But yeah, I would have thought somehow the Straits of Hormuz are going to be opened up. I don't know how that will happen, whether it's obliteration for Iran, whether it's US Navy ships escorting tankers through, or some combination of all of the above, or whether it's a taco trade and there's a deal done. Who knows? I suspect the taco trade, I shouldn't say, I was going to say it's probably the least likely option, but then on history would say it's not. But I think the risk is if you don't resolve this to open up the Straits of Hormuz without risk in the future, Iran can always use it again, which will be an issue.
Well, they've had the ability to use it and have to varying degrees for many, many years, but we've never seen it shut down to this degree for this long before. But it's an extreme situation. I mean, the way that I'm reading it is the regime, the IRGC, see this as an existential threat, very much like, I believe, Vladimir Putin and the Russian oligarchs saw the Ukraine situation as an existential threat. And they refused to give in to the US, pushing Ukraine into NATO and putting NATO bases on the Russian border. And Iran is refusing to give in to the US and Israel trying to threaten them with regime change. Existential threats, people tend to dig their heels in and are prepared to go to the mattresses.
Yeah. If you're giving them no other option, that's, I think, what's happening. So it's got to either be withdrawal or annihilation, I think.
And annihilation is going to require boots on the ground, which I don't think is going to be a quick solution. And at some point, China and Russia are going to play a bigger role in it, depending on where they feel their interests lie and at what point they need to get more engaged. And North Korea, possibly.
Yeah, and I think oil's going to play a very big part in all this, and I think the pressures are already mounting on the US government to sort something out. I've read in the Wall Street Journal overnight the 4 oil majors sent their CEOs into the White House for meetings. So
what do you think the content of that discussion was?
Sorry?
What do you think the content of that discussion was?
You're stepping in our turf and clean this mess up, I think would have been the oil industry's position. I mean, they're making money now because the margin's up, but if it does disrupt supply chains and they can't sell product, they'll be very upset.
Well, the market has obviously been very volatile, but as I said in my newsletter last week, volatility is our friend. It's one thing I've learned from
Mm.
you over the years is
Yeah,
that we don't fear volatility. It creates opportunities for us.
correct. We need volatility.
Yes, it's can be scary when you're going through it, but
Mhm.
when the market retreats and prices retreat, that creates opportunities for us to buy good quality businesses at bargain basement prices. we
Correct.
we benefit from that in the long term, but our portfolios tend to go down.
Mhm.
And my
Why
portfolio
we don't
has
watch
gone
them.
down in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, my mistake. Uh, I did have to sell Tusk from our US portfolio this week. I think Tusk, we did a deep dive on it. It was a bit of a cigar butt option. It became a 3-point trend line sell. I think I lost 12% on that trade. And I added GPRK, which is the company I'm going to do a deep dive on today, Tony. Geo Park Limited. A very interesting story. A lot of founder drama in recent
Mhm.
years, which has led to the company basically being in play. But I'll go back and I'll do a bit of a background on it before we get into that. So this is a Latin American oil and gas explorer, operator, and consolidator. This is according to their website. With assets and growth platforms in Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil, we are a leading independent E&P company that's exploring exploration and production.
Mhm.
Positioned across Latin America, one of the world's richest and most underexplored hydrocarbon regions. A clear set of priorities and key values have driven our ground floor startup through a 2-decade track record of consistent growth, superior ESG performance, and strong value delivery. Now, under the history section of their website, it says 2 decades building the best company with the best culture. No mention of the fact that the two co-founders went to war with each other about 5 years ago and both have since left the building.
But part of the process, though, culture's improved.
Maybe that's it. We had to get rid of those guys. Once we got rid of them, the culture improved. And as I said, the company seems to be at play at the moment. A couple of entities involved in taking
Mm.
big stakes and trying to take it over, which is fascinating. It's like something out of Succession or I don't know.
Wall Street.
Yeah, Wall Street, something like that. So, as I said, they're based out of Colombia, like Ecopetrol that we talked about
Mhm.
in episode 38 EC. And like Ecopetrol, these guys are not an ADR. So I checked that first
Oh,
off.
okay. Right.
There is some system where Latin American companies can list directly on
Mhm.
the New York Stock Exchange. So these guys are in that boat. Now, remember, with Colombia, they have the appropriately named President Gustavo Petro, who is the 35th president of Colombia since 2022. He is the first left wing president in the recent history of Colombia, and he campaigned on a pledge to halt all new oil and gas exploration contracts. So he's allowing existing contracts to
Mhm.
continue, but pipeline for new reserves is legally choked off. So that plays a role with
Mhm.
companies like this. And as we'll see, one of the reasons they've recently acquired some assets in Argentina is because their ability to grow new projects in Colombia has been choked off by the existing administration. But as I recall from the Ecopetrol episode, Colombia relies on oil revenues
Yeah.
to a large extent, but they're trying to transition away from it. But the founding of this company, not as old. Like we've talked about a lot of oil companies in the last couple of months, and a lot of them go back 100 years. These guys go back 23, 24 years. Founded in 2002 by James Park and Gerald O'Shaughnessy.
Ooh.
Two seasoned oil and gas professionals who wanted to build a independent energy company in Latin America. The founders brought a couple of different backgrounds. Jim Park was a geophysicist by training, had over 50 years of industry experience, had previously pioneered commercial production in Central America with Basic Resources. Gerald O'Shaughnessy was a lawyer, came from a family oil company called Lario Oil and Gas, where he had been like a legal counsel there. Then he became an entrepreneur, was the first Western partner for Luke Oil in Russia during the 1990s. He goes back, his career in the fossil fuel industry goes back to 1976, general counsel at Lario Oil and Gas and senior vice president. That company was started by his grandfather, Ignatius Aloysius O'Shaughnessy, founded in 1927. Gerald O'Shaughnessy is a cousin of James O'Shaughnessy
No way. Really?
from What Works on Wall Street.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
tough.
because the first place my head went to, both
Yeah.
grandsons of
Wow.
Ignatius Aloysius O'Shaughnessy. James also worked for the family owned venture capital firm early in his career. And apparently, in interviews, he said that his interest in the stock market was sparked by family debates regarding how his grandfather's fortune should be invested. And that's what led him into Wall
Yeah, right.
Street.
Okay.
And for people who haven't read it, his book, What Works on Wall Street, is a very, very good book for value
Mm.
investors to read. It reflects a great deal of QAV philosophy and
Mm.
approach to value investing. So there's a connection there. So, as I said, they got started in 2002. They established their first operation in Argentina's Patagonia region, first oil production in the Del Mosquito field. And then they continued to grow the business. But then after 20 years, the founders went to war with each other in 2021 over a governance dispute. O'Shaughnessy claimed that Jim Park operated as an imperial CEO, exerting near total control over a pliable board of directors that acted as a rubber stamp for his plans. He claimed Park consistently resisted independent evaluations of company assets and blocked potential value maximizing transactions because he insisted on leading any resulting combined entity. There was also a lot of allegations that executive compensation was being withheld from independent directors and or critical information around executive compensation was being withheld from independent directors and the board. When O'Shaughnessy challenged Park, the board allegedly forced him out as chairman rather than addressing his concerns. The dispute reached a breaking point on June 4th, 2021, when the board issued O'Shaughnessy an ultimatum: resign as chairman within 24 hours or be removed. Following his removal, the company claimed his exit was related to a lack of transparency regarding his pledged shares, asserting he was in breach of board policy. O'Shaughnessy dismissed this as revisionist history, noting that his share pledges were a matter of public record and were never raised as an issue until the leadership conflict intensified. He launched a formal campaign ahead of the 2021 annual general meeting, urging shareholders to vote against Jim Park and three other incumbent directors, and he proposed a slate of three new independent nominees. However, the leading proxy advisory firm ISS recommended that shareholders vote for the company's nominees,
Mm.
stating that O'Shaughnessy had not made a compelling case for change and that the board had already begun making good faith efforts to refresh its composition. Ultimately, shareholders re-elected all Geo Park nominees with at least 70% of the votes. Just reminded me, I recently rewatched the first season of Succession when the son, whatever his name is, tries to roll the dad and they have
Mhm.
the board meeting and the
Yep.
son's stuck in
He's like,
traffic and he's on the
yeah.
phone. Yeah. And his dad just browbeats them all into getting his own way. So, yeah, it was a big deal. So then he left, O'Shaughnessy, and then Jim Park retired as CEO in 2022. although he remains the principal shareholder and serves as vice chairman of the board. He holds about 16% of the stock, from what I can
Mhm.
tell. O'Shaughnessy is down to about 6% of the stock. But between the two of them, they still hold quite a big chunk of the stock, even though O'Shaughnessy isn't really involved in the business anymore. Um, Park's departure as CEO the following year is described on the website as a successful leadership transition. Barry and Stan came up with that one for them.
Mhm.
He was replaced as CEO by Andre Ocampo, who was in turn replaced in 2024 by Felipe Bayon, who had run Ecopetrol for many,
Oh,
many
okay.
years before that.
Mhm.
And they have like a kind of a joint venture with Ecopetrol. So anyway, these guys are going through a transition period. Obviously, the oil price has been depressed for quite a while up until Donald Trump's adventures in Venezuela and Iran. And so this company's sort of been reinventing itself for the last couple of years
Mhm.
to try and figure out how it was going to survive in an era of low oil prices, plus what's going on with the election of Gustavo Petro in the last 3 or 4 years in Colombia. They've had to rejig things, had to pivot, as the succession boys would say. We've got to pivot. They did manage to deliver production above the upper end of the guidance range last year, which was impressive considering they were under pricing pressure. But at the end of last year, they also closed acquisition of some property near Patagonia in Argentina, a place called Vaca Muerta. Do you want to guess what Vaca Muerta means in Spanish, Tony?
Well, Moita would be death, wouldn't it? So I don't know. No,
Vaca?
vaca,
Vaca?
vaca.
Mm.
Go go with death. I don't know. Death trap, death track,
Dead cow.
dead cow. Okay, vaca. I didn't get
Mm.
cow from that.
Vaca Muerta. Largest oil discovery, I think, in this area, discovered in 2010. So they're moving from traditional easy oil, which is what they've done previously, into more difficult, complex shale, which is what
Uh,
this thing is in Argentina, pivoting away
right.
from Colombian oil to Argentinian shale. Um, so that's part of the pivot. They've also been cutting costs and also trying to figure out how they can continue to produce more oil from the current blocks that they have in Colombia.
Mhm.
And they've come up with something they call their North Star targets. They've done what they call a strategic reset of the cost platform, cutting costs, and they've got some pretty hairy goals for how much they're going to be able to, how low they're going to be able to drive their costs down. The structural changes they've made in the last couple of years are expected to generate approximately $45 million in annualized savings moving into 2026. But the business is still primarily based around its mature assets in the Llanos 34 and CPO 5 blocks in Colombia. You've got the C3PO blocks and then the CPO 5 blocks. The most significant part of their new interest in Vaca Muerta is 100% working interest in the Loma Jarlosa Este block and a 95% interest in the Puesto Silva Oeste block, totaling over 12,300 gross acres in the highly productive black oil window of the Neuquén Basin. But a lot of protesting in Patagonia. Patagonians do not like oil companies setting up shop in their area. So there's an despite the fact that they are lauding their ESG track record on their website, there's a lot of issues in Argentina, a lot of protests, a lot of lawsuits going on around trying to stop fracking and oil mining in Argentina. So that could be an issue for them. Getting out of Colombia may not rescue them.
Mm.
But up until recently, and this is where the story gets even more interesting, up until recently, they looked like they were about to acquire another Colombian asset, Frontera Energy's upstream assets in Colombia. They'd agreed to acquire them for $375 million in cash. It was going to double the company's reserve base, added
Mhm.
approximately 40,000 barrels of oil per day of production. And it was a big deal. Deal was pretty much done until at the last minute, and I'm talking a week and a half ago, a company called Parex Resources,
Mhm.
a Canadian oil company who also owns 9% of Geo Park, put in a competitive bid for Frontera Energy, around about $500 million, plus the
Cool.
assumption of debt.
Mm.
So the Geo Park board of directors made the decision not to try and compete with Parex. It was obviously, I mean, that's a big premium, right? They bumped
Yeah.
it up by $125 million. Again, it's like Succession, a Succession deal.
Yeah.
Just yeah, just throws so much money at it that no one can compete. So they decided they weren't going to try and compete either because they knew that this was a game that they weren't going to win or because they just didn't want to overpay for the resources. Either way, but then within days of that happening, 10 days ago, March 6, 2026, they announced that a Colombian billionaire called Jaime Gilinski had just become a cornerstone investor in Geo Park, sort of a white knight
Mhm.
deal.
All right. Yep.
He's a Panama based Colombian banker, investor, and real estate developer. According to Forbes, he's the second richest person in Colombia with a net worth of 15.1 US billion dollars.
Mm.
His company, Colden Investments, acquired 12,876,053 newly issued common shares at a price of $8.31 per share, representing a $107 million investment, which gets him about 20.2% of GeoPark's new outstanding shares. However, he paid $8.31 a share.
Mhm.
Parex had put in an offer for the entire company about 6 months ago at $9 a share. The
Mm.
board rejected their offer, saying that it was undervalued, and then sold 20% of the company for $8.31 a share to
Mhm.
Gilinski. Now, at the time Parex offered $9 a share, the share price was about $6,
Right.
$6.30 or something. So it was a pretty big premium to the share
Yeah.
price at the time. Sounded like a good deal. If I owned it at $6 and they were offering to take me out at $9, I
Mhm.
would have been like, thank you very much, do the deal. They turned them down, said that it wasn't attributing enough value to the Argentinian acquisition, which was in the
Right.
process of just happening then. But then when Parex did an aggressive takeover um, offer and then that failed, then Parex is trying to get a bunch of directors appointed to the board. And so the Gilinski deal is fascinating. So he not only gets 20% of the shares, he gets board nomination rights, approval rights over certain major corporate actions, and has agreed to vote with the existing board for all of these things moving forwards. And he's locked in for 18 months. He can't sell his shares for 18 months.
Right. Yep.
So it's not a poison pill. I don't know what you call that, but it's basically a white knight. He's come
Yeah.
in, he's given them a ton of cash, and Parex are basically stymied. They can't get independent direct or their own directors nominated onto the board. And so I don't know what they do with their 9.4% stake, but so this whole thing has been in play recently. But it seems to me that both Parex and Gilinski see this company as offering value,
Yeah.
and they're both trying to get control of it, which is
Yeah.
good for us, I would
Yeah,
think.
definitely. And makes sense if Colombia isn't allowing you reserves to be explored, then you've got to buy an existing company if you want access to that market. And if one's also then getting into Argentina, there's got to be upside.
Yeah. Um, the whole Frontera thing that they tried to buy and Parex came in and
Hmm.
paid a premium for it. I don't know how that plays into any of this, how that plays out. But anyway,
Yeah, I would imagine Parex have said, we can't buy you, we'll buy your competitor. And they probably had inside, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. They had 9% of the company that was looking to bid, so they may have known a little bit about what was going on and what the target was worth and the synergies and all that kind of thing. So they decided if we couldn't get Geo Park, we'll get the other one.
yeah. So that's some of the background, what's going on. It's kind of interesting. Um, things are happening behind the scenes. Their annual report is due out on April 2nd. So the numbers that we've got are, last quarter. So we've got 3 quarters of numbers.
Hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see how the annual report plays out. That's the 2025 annual report. So it's not going to take into account all of the recent goings on in the oil
Hmm.
sector, obviously. Market cap is roughly 454 million. They carry about 553 million in debt, which is a lot when your market cap's
Mm.
454 million. But they've got that 107 million cash injection from Gilinski, which is giving them a bit of a buffer. Total revenue for the year reached 492.5 million. Their adjusted EBIT was 277 million, down from 417 million in 2024. But the analysis that I read said this is almost entirely price driven because their production averaged about 58.1 million barrels in 2025 versus 65.6 in the prior year. So production dropped a little bit, but the oil price dropped a lot.
Hmm.
Cash went down from 277 million at the end of 2024 to 100 million at the end of 2025, but they paid off 512.6 million in debt and then 115.5 million for the acquisition of the Vaca Muerta assets. So paying off debt, buying some Argentinian assets, probably a good way to spend their money.
Hmm.
They also paid 24.2 million in dividends and $41.5 million in interest. So that explains some of the cash delta. Um, what else have I got?
Well, a couple of things I noticed when I was reading about the company, uh, and you referenced this before about their cost cutting program, but they seem to have a history of being a very low cost producer. So one of the benefits of whether it's because of the Colombian government's rules and regulations or because of the company's policies is that they've been developing the same sort of area for a long time now. So the benefits of that are that once you build the infrastructure for the first wells, um, terminals and rail lines and pipelines and things, that's it. You don't have to build it again if you find another strike in the area. So they've been very good at being able to maximize that initial investment in their Colombian fields. And their proposal is to do the same thing in Argentina. So build some infrastructure, stay within the current permits or the area, and try and maximize the output from that without incurring more cost. And the analysis I saw said that they were profitable at sort of sub $50 a barrel, so sort of 45 to $50 a barrel. They'd still be profitable, which the oil price hasn't gotten down to. Uh, so they are a low cost producer. A lot of people can't stay profitable at that low oil price, which is I think which is probably one of the reasons that they're becoming attractive and on the radar of other oil companies who are looking to expand into the area. They're a low-cost producer with reserves. In Colombia, they're reserves that can't be repeated, and at least unless there's a change in government or government policy. So yeah, they're as we often see with QAV, we like them. They're attractive, and they're also attractive to players in the industry who are trying to take them over.
Yeah. So running through the scoring for these guys, they had a QAV score of 0.19. They weren't at the top of my list, but they were up there when I ran it this week. By the way, our Australian listeners know when I ran our Australian buy list this week, there was 4 stocks, actually 3 stocks on it that I could buy, all companies. The US portfolio had a lot more stocks. Obviously, it's a lot bigger
Okay.
market, but there was a lot of things to buy over there,
Mm.
not being as impacted by downturns as much as our market was. Price to operating cash flow 2.81, which is
Wow.
very attractive from our perspective.
Mhm.
From a Stockopedia perspective, they've got a quality rank of 78, which we gave them a score for. Their stock rank is actual stock rank 95, so we scored them for that.
Mm.
Their F score is a 5, which is pretty healthy, so we score them for that. Their price is above both of our IVs, so I couldn't score them for that. Our IV one is $5.32, and so is our IV two. That's interesting. Wonder why that
Mm.
is. Their price is around $8.70. I didn't look into why the IV two is the same as the IV one. That's weird. What else have I got here? Price is not less than book. What's their book price? EPS. Equity per share $4. So yeah, they're a lot higher than their book. They're higher than their book plus 30. So I couldn't go. EPS growth is negative. So couldn't score them for any of those things. So really, growth over PE is not greater than 1.5. Book value growth is not positive. PE is not less than yield. Yield is not greater than bank debt. Couldn't score them for many of those things. At the end of the day, really, it comes down to some of those Stockopedia scores, which are quite strong and positive, and the PropCAF, I think, is what it
Mhm.
all comes down to at the end of the day. They got 7 out of 13 on the checklist, so a quality score of only 54% for us. It's not great, but cheap
Yep.
on a PropCAF perspective.
And we haven't seen the impact on their business from the surge in the oil price yet, too.
Which may be nothing. Like that may be very short lived, depending on what
Mhm.
happens. And even, if the oil price goes up, but the global economies collapse, it may not necessarily be a good thing. I don't know how it's going to impact Latin America's economies and the fortunes of Colombian oil production companies. But the fact that there's this bidding war for them between
Yeah.
Parex and Gilinski, I think, is evidence, as you said, that we're not the only people that see there's some latent
Yep.
value in this. So anyway,
Yeah, definitely.
that's all I've got on GPRK, um, which isn't the Republic of North Korea. Just want to point that out. And I added them to the light portfolio this week, so we'll see how they go, the QAV light portfolio. Before we go, I should do a quick portfolio update on our US portfolio. So the US dummy portfolio, the main one I've been running since September 2023, has dropped a lot in the last couple of weeks. It's now up 85.6% versus the S&P up 50.75% over the same period of time. So it's still an okay relative, but it was up over 100% a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
So the whole Strait of Hormuz Iran thing has had a toll on this. And the light portfolio that's only been running for, well, since when? December, I think. I started in December. It is currently down 1.95% versus the S&P down 2.6% over the same period of time. So it's beating the S&P, but only because it's lost less money.
Yeah.
Some of the stocks that we've added have done quite well. Cord Energy is up 32%. Eco Petrol is up 15%. Scripps is up 12, SSP. And GPRK is up 4.3% since I added it yesterday. Murphy Oil's up 3.7% since we added it, I think it was last week or the week
Mhm.
before, maybe. Neighbours Industries down a couple of points. Danaos is down 6. And Shinhan Financial Company is down 13. So much for the Korean banking sector. Don't know what's going on over there. And that's an ADR too. So we've probably got ADR impacts on that one as well. Anyway, all in all, it's still finding its feet, but some good performance from some of those stocks like Cord Energy in particular.
Yeah, all companies at the moment, at least in Australia, are doing very well in terms of their share price.
Yeah, but like as usual, like the companies that we're seeing in the US, the companies that we're seeing in Australia are all sector driven. You know, the
Mhm.
checklist is driving us into certain sectors,
Mhm.
and some people may be worried about over concentration, lack of diversification, but we just go where the checklist tells us there's value to be had, right?
Yeah, fish where the fish are.
But it's interesting because you would think, in one way, that with oil prices spiking and all of the global turmoil that's going on, everyone would be jumping on oil companies right now. But yet they're still turning up on our buy list as where the most value is right now.
Yeah, true. Um, I think people are having, just like we are, a hard time of predicting what's going to happen. Is the oil price staying at $100 a barrel? Is it dropping back? How
Mm.
long is this going to last? What are the other
A-
implications in terms of interest rates rising, or supply chain disruptions, or impact of the oil price into food? All sorts of things are being crunched and modeled and gamed at the moment.
And of course, we look at none of that.
No.
Not really. Tangentially, we do. Like the commodity charts we look at, we won't buy
Yeah.
anything if the commodity's falling and oil's going up.
Hmm.
Sentiment for these individual stocks, we'll look at their sentiment charts, and if they're going the wrong way, we won't buy them. So if
Hmm.
there's a little bit of interest around them, but we don't, we don't really care where the oil price is. We don't care where interest rates are. We're looking at historical numbers, not
Hmm.
trying to predict future numbers. So it's all based on last year's financials, not predictions of this year's financials. So, well, maybe a little bit. We
There's
have the
one or two bits.
EPS
Yeah. Yeah.
forecasts, those sorts of things. Yeah. And some of the financial metrics from Stockopedia and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that's
Yeah.
all I've got,
Well, thank you.
Tony.
That's interesting. And the O'Shaughnessy reference, I didn't expect that. That's great.
Yeah, I thought when his name came up, I thought, oh, he can't be related. That would be,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, he is. Um, yeah, no, I thought the Succession level
Mm.
founder dramas and boardroom dramas and acquisitions and takeovers and all that kind of stuff was the most interesting part of that
And
story.
shouldn't say it's often the case. It's sometimes the case with owner founders. Like,
Mm.
when I was reading about this company, the analysis I was reading kept emphasizing it was a low cost producer. They kept a tight lid on costs. And clearly that was at the behest of the owner founder, who was probably came up through that kind of, background of, I'm small, I'm scrappy, I'm going to keep a lid on costs, I'm not going to spend money when I don't need to, all that kind of stuff. And then, exerted influence on the board, who were there to basically do his bidding, or didn't provide much resistance. But is that a bad thing? Because his bidding was still keeping a lid on costs. And had a good strategy about let's just explore the areas that we own and not try and waste money on duplicating infrastructure. Let's use the stuff we've got and maximize that. So it was all good, sound strategy. There's always this debate around governance when it comes to owner founders. Are you better off having good governance, or are you better off having someone who knows the industry inside and out, who's lived and breathed it? And yes, they're forceful and they're domineering because they've had to be to keep costs down and to keep the company focused on their vision, all that kind of thing. It's an interesting dilemma, I think, when you look at a lot of owner founder businesses.
And I looked up the O'Shaughnessy family oil business, Lario. They're still around, as far as I can tell, still run by the O'Shaughnessy's. I think, there's been succession plans from the grandfather all the way through the family. They still run it. So that's interesting. So O'Shaughnessy's obviously come out of this, 120-year-old family-run oil business. Also, the other interesting thing about this company is it's a Colombian oil company founded by two Americans,
Mhm.
not Colombians.
Mm.
Uh,
And they have changed CEO, and from the names you've mentioned, I'm wondering whether there was some kind of pressure or uh, even just a tip of the hat towards the Colombian government to say, hey, we're on board and we're willing to play ball or to use local staff or whatever. I don't know, but it's interesting timing.
and as I said, the current guy was the CEO of Ecopetrol for,
Hmm.
I think, many, many years. So, and I think the Vaca Muerta thing that they bought, they sort of share that land with Ecopetrol. It's some sort of a
Yeah, right.
joint venture or some sort of a
Hmm.
collaborative operation they've got going there. So yeah, there's a lot of interplay with Ecopetrol and the Colombians and the government and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, beyond my pay grade, that's Geo Park. We'll see how it does. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. We can come back next week and talk about the Straits of Hormuz again.
there'll be another oil company on the buy list probably next
So
week, the way
yeah,
things are going. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Or a company that makes Tomahawk missiles or anti drone defense systems,
Well,
maybe.
they're the ones that are going up in Australia as well. They're just not value stocks. They
Yeah.
make little money usually, and now their share prices are rising dramatically.
Well, that brings us to after hours. What have you got for me this week, Tony?
Yeah. So a book called The Bed of Procrustes by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Do you know the story of the Bed of Procrustes,
I
Jan?
didn't until I got your notes and I
No.
read up on
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Procrustes, it's a Greek story, probably a myth, but he owned an inn that would take in travelers, and then he'd give them a bed for the night, but he would make the traveler fit the bed. So if the traveler was shorter than the bed, he would stretch them, and if the traveler was too long for the bed, he would lop their legs off or their feet off. So not a very nice person. And eventually he was slayed by Theseus, who slayed the Minotaur, and he turned the bed on Procrustes and put him in the bed and then chopped off his head for being too long. So the book is a whole series of aphorisms, kind of stories around this. This is an example, and it was pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's a bit like that book you referred to me ages ago from the guy who wrote Homo Sapiens, where it's a compendium of sort of 2 or 3 line aphorisms. So I've got some examples here. I'll just read out a couple. And this is how the book is. It's just laid out, sort of 4 or 5 to a page, page after page. But here's some examples. In science, you need to understand the world. In business, you need others to misunderstand it. Using as an excuse others' failure of common sense is itself a failure of common sense. And the last one I'll read out. France took Algeria hoping for a country to eat cassoulet, and instead France is eating couscous.
Yeah, very
Yes.
good.
But they're
I
all
downloaded the book.
quite quirky.
I like
Oh, okay.
Talib. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna crack in it when I finish the Odessa file, maybe.
Mm. I like Taleb as well. There's a sort of cadre of authors who I just automatically buy the next book that they put out, and he's one of those.
But this is an old one, right? 2010, I think this came out.
Oh, okay. I must have just come across it recently then, because yeah,
Mm.
I've just bought it.
What else? Anything
No,
else?
that's it. Like I said, I've rewatched some movies like Minority Report. Nothing really worth reporting. A lot of B grade stuff this week, which has been fun, but hardly worth recommending.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, have you seen the Mel Brooks doco?
No.
I think it's on maybe Disney. It's called The 99-Year-Old Man. Just came
No,
out.
right.
Directed by Judd Apatow.
Okay.
And it's just interviews with Mel today, telling his story, and a whole bunch of people, fans like contemporary comedians, Dave Chappelle, Seinfeld, Sarah Silverman, people like that. But also lots of archival interviews of him from over the decades,
Hmm.
plus Carl Reiner and people like that.
Hmm.
It has David Lynch's last filmed interview in it,
Oh, wow.
talking about Elephant Man, and lots of interviews with Rob Reiner in it too, which I assume are
Mm.
possibly some of his last interviews.
Mm.
But it's great. Like, I assume you're a Mel Brooks fan. I mean, I know
Hmm.
you're a Python fan. I don't know if we've talked about Mel Brooks much, but you, like me, must have grown up watching Mel Brooks
Oh,
films.
yeah. Young
Yeah.
Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles. Yeah.
And Get Smart.
Oh, yeah. Get
And
Smart. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize until I watched this is that his career was in the toilet before Get Smart. I thought he was like successful when he did Get Smart with Buck Henry, but the story is that he was working on the Sid Caesar show for quite a few years and kind of either quit or got fired from that because he wanted to make movies. And I think, yeah, Sid signed up for another series and Mel didn't want to do more TV, and whatever reason he left, and then was broke, couldn't get, arrested in Hollywood, and career was going nowhere. And then somebody approached him, I think a producer approached him with the idea of doing this TV show to make fun of James Bondy type stuff. And he did Get
Yeah. Right.
Smart, and that launched him. So then he made The Producers,
Hmm.
was a flop. Then he
Really?
made the 12 Chairs. It was a flop.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, great film based on
Is
a
it?
Russian novel. Um, and yeah, again, he was a complete failure by the early 70s. And then a producer approached him and said, "I've got a young screenwriter's given me a screenplay called Black Bart, and I want you to direct it." Mel says, "I only direct my own work, things I write myself." The guy says, "I can pay you. When do we start?" And that was Blazing Saddles, and he brought in
Yeah.
Richard Pryor, and then the whole story behind
Gene
that, and
Wilder.
that. And he
Mm.
figured no one is ever going to see it because it's a Western. No one's ever going to watch a Western. No one made a Western for 35 years. No one's going to watch this. So and he was getting paid. He didn't care. He didn't have a percentage in it. So he just went balls to the wall. He said somebody told him, if you're gonna approach the bell, ring it.
Yeah. Right.
So they just went,
Good saying.
every joke they could think of, they just put it in there. And of course, yeah, it was hugely successful. Yeah, and then he's had other flops, but I didn't realize, apart from Elephant Man, like when he started Brooks Films, because he
Hmm.
wanted to make serious films, but he says, if I directed Elephant Man, people expect it to be a comedy musical.
Yeah.
He also did The Fly. I didn't realize that
No,
he
I didn't know
made
that.
the Jeff Goldblum version of The Fly, which is one of my favorite films. I just rewatched that in the last year. Loved it. So yeah, what a life, what a career, and what a
Mm.
legacy, and a lot
And
of
married to Anne Bancroft too, which is I always found surprising.
you weren't the only one. Everyone, like, they
Yeah.
have interviews with people going. Everyone at the time was like, he said there was they'd only been together for a short while, and they were at some event, and there was some famous guy, I can't remember who it was, big Hollywood dude, who looked at her, looked at him, looked at her, looked at him, and said, "I don't get it." But the story between them getting together is fascinating too. She was in a play. Like, she won an Academy Award in like 62, and then she was in The Graduate, and
Mm.
she was a big Broadway star. Some friend of his dragged him along to see this thing. She performed a number on stage. She finished. He stood up, apparently, in the audience and yelled out, "And Bancroft, my name is Mel Brooks."
Ah, ah. He rang the bell.
Yeah. And then he stalked her for the next 5 days. She says everywhere she went, he was there. And he was like, "We meet again. This is kismet. It's meant to be." She also says that the first time she saw him, she knew she was going to marry him just
Oh.
instantly. And then they were together for, I don't know, 45 years or something like that. Then she dies. And then he ends up going to Carl Reiner's house every night for dinner. You ever seen that Comedians in Cars Getting
Yeah.
Coffee episode?
Yep. I
So,
love it.
so Jerry is in this thing talking about
Mm.
that, and he's it's great. He says, "Yeah, look, it was probably pretty intrusive, but he said now America gets to see when you've achieved everything there is to achieve, where do you finish your life?
Mm.
Sitting in front of Wheel of Jeopardy,
With a
eating
TV dinner.
eat
Yeah.
with a TV dinner, eating deli sandwiches. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what."
Which I thought was fantastic. That was a great setting for them. Very realistic.
So Rob Reiner then says when Carl died, Mel was there. Carl went to the bathroom and collapsed. Mel called the whatever you call it,
911.
I think it was like a retirement village place. So he had a house,
Yep.
but he called medical support, kept begging them to keep the machine on him, hoping they could bring him back around. Didn't. He said that Mel turned up at the house every night for months to continue the ritual of eating. He wasn't prepared to let his friend go for
Wow.
months. And he said to them, "Look, I know you're going to have to sell the place eventually. Just tell me when I can't come anymore." And Rob Reiner he said, "Well, maybe we'll sell it with you in it. Buy the house, get Mel Brooks for free." But yeah, like and then, Carl's dead, Rob's dead, Gene Wilder's dead. He's outlived everyone. But yeah, it's really, and then talks about, then he goes and does the producers on Broadway, reinvents Broadway. Not Nathan Lane,
Lane.
but well, Nathan Lane's in it too, but Josh Gad is in it because he's producing Spaceballs 2, which they're making at the moment. But he says that, like, the Book of Mormon wouldn't exist without the producers on Broadway, because the producers on Broadway reinvented Broadway. All of a sudden, you could do stupid slapstick, zany comedy on Broadway, which opened the door for movies being remade into musicals.
Right.
But also, which hadn't been done before, or hadn't been done for a long time anyway, since maybe the 60s. And also really zany stuff, and brought a whole new generation of people back to musical theater and Broadway. So anyway, and it's still, I think the producers, he says in this, it still has more Tony Awards than any other production, including Hamilton. It got 11 Tony Awards or something. So yeah, what a life.
I remember going to see it when it was revived in Australia with Burt Newton playing the Nathan Lane part.
Was he good?
Yeah, it's great. Really good.
I saw him do, maybe I saw that too. I just remember him doing Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, that's it.
That's not, but that's not
no, it must have been
Nathan
the
Lane's
Nathan Lane
character.
part. No, he was the,
No.
No, you're right. He
He's
was the German, yeah.
guy doing Hitler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Judd Apatow asks him, when they made the film in 67, he goes, "Was anyone else making jokes about Hitler?" And he goes, no one. No, he said, Dave Chappelle talking about Blazing Saddles is like, people say you couldn't make that movie today. You couldn't make it back then either. Like, there was never a time when you could make fun of racism the way that he did in that.
Would have been worse back then, I think.
And Mel Brooks says the only reason he could get away with it is because Richard Pryor was his writer and was supposed to play the role. So anyway, yeah, really, if you like Mel Brooks, I love this documentary. Really good. My musical suggestion for this week is Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross.
Okay.
Do you know what vocalese is?
No.
You probably do, but like me, you probably don't know by that name. So you know what scat is?
Yeah.
Scat is when they put English lyrics over the jazz part. Yeah. So they take a jazz standard, but instead of
Mhm.
scatting the trumpet line, they put words over the trumpet line. So anyway, um, Lambert, Hendrix, and Ross were the pinnacle vocalese trio in the 60s. I've just been
Right.
listening to them. They did like 4 or 5 albums. Been listening to that while I work over the last couple of days. It's really it's a really cool sort of
Okay.
60s jazz background vibe. This vocal trio singing over the top of jazz standards. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. That's it. That's what I got.
No, good. Oh, it's
Yeah,
been
and I
fun.
got washed out. You heard my camping story. We got washed out, came home,
But
had to drive through a bloody dirt track through the forest, which was hairy. No reception, no sat nav. A guy that came in the morning that we left, I took photos. He had a map on his phone still. I was
yeah.
taking photos of his map to guide myself through these forest tracks. Thought if we
Mhm.
break down or hit a
Mhm.
ditch and do an axle or
Yep.
something, 10 o'clock at night, no mobile phone reception. It's going to be
So what
fun.
so what happened? You lasted a night, did you?
So we got there on Friday afternoon. It was raining. We set up the tent
Right.
in the rain. We'd borrowed
Mm.
this tent the day before, didn't know how to put it up, spent 90 minutes trying to get this tent up in the rain. It poured rain all night. We found out the next morning all the roads in were flooded because the dam had released a whole bunch of water. So, like in Bundaberg,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was flooded last week, all the roads were flooded. The only way in or out was a dirt road through the forest, which was hairy. And then the forecast was it was going to rain all night on Saturday night, but it had been sunny all day and it was dry. So about 6 o'clock, Chrissy and I made the call. Let's just get out of here. I don't, and it was going to be raining the next day. We didn't want to have to pack up in the rain, and it was.
Yep.
So we packed up, left about 8, tried the main road out. Yeah, it was flooded. Chrissy walked out into the bridge over the river and it went up to her knees, and she didn't even
Mm.
get to the road section. It was up to her knees, and we're like, yeah, this is bad. So we turned around and hit the dirt track and just sort of it was only about half an hour through the forest road and got home by 10:30. It was fine. Turns out it didn't rain and everyone the next day just left on the main road. But, we made a call
Yeah.
for our sanity. I thought if it rains, I'm just going to be lying here worried all night about, oh, shit, we got to
Mm.
pack this thing up and pain us. But Fox, because we turned up in the rain on the Friday afternoon. One of Fox's friends, because it was a school thing, one of his best
Oh, okay.
friends comes running up to the car in the rain. Fox just jumps out, takes off in the rain. We don't see him for the next couple of hours. He'd pop up to the tent every now and again and go, dinner ready? No. All right. He'd be off again. We were talking about this. So beautiful camping ground, only families from his school there. They sort of booked the thing out. There's like 30 families or whatever. So the kids, we didn't see the kids for the whole day, Friday night and Saturday. It was like living in the 70s. The kids are just running
Mm.
around on
Yeah, right.
scooters,
Yep.
skateboards, bikes, going to creeks in the bush. Just, it was like growing up the we did, right? You just don't see the kid
Yeah.
for the day. The kid's just off playing with his friends. It was great. It was something he can't
That's
do
fantastic.
in
Yeah.
suburban Brisbane,
You should be able
just
to, huh?
yeah, if he doesn't even have any friends that live within,
Mm.
20-minute walk from here, but it was, yeah, just I don't know. I wish it was like it was in many ways, that whole thing. Because you know what it was like. I'd disappear
Mm.
Saturday, 7 o'clock Saturday morning. I'd be on my bike and I wouldn't come home until dark. My parents had no idea where I was. We all
Yep.
were the same growing up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. School holidays was like that.
Yeah,
Every afternoon was like that.
yeah,
Go out until the streetlights came on, ride your bike, go
yeah,
down and play football on the footy oval. Yep.
yeah. Go,
Yep.
try and get into
Skateboards.
trouble, exploring
Oh,
drains and
oh,
going
number of times
abandoned
I get
car parks and
called, like, dad would get home and then the neighbor would come over and say, the kids have done this. And like, dad would go, what have you
yeah.
done? Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. He did it. Yeah.
And that whole thing of, there was a hill, this place, a road, main road leading up to a dam. Fox and his friend were on scooters, no helmets, no shoes, going up to the top of this hill and then banging it down this thing as
Yeah.
fast as they possibly
It's like
could.
the 70s. We never had any helmets or shoes either.
Exactly. And I was talking to Chrissy about, that ability to evaluate personal risk
Yeah.
in a physical sense only comes from trial and error, right? You have to fall down and hurt yourself a bunch of times to get a sense for, okay, maybe that was pushing it too far. Maybe I should think about
Yeah.
things before I
But
do them.
also watching your dumb mate do it first and go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
like, because they're like 3 years older than you and they can do it and you can't, but you're not going to give up.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Fox's school is based on this principle too. The kids need to take a lot of risks because that's how
Mm.
they learn to evaluate risks. But then kids get hurt. A lot of arms get broken and concussions happen, and parents get upset. And I'm like, that's kind of what you signed up for when you sent them to this
Yeah.
school, right? It's part of the philosophy of the school is they let kids use knives and power tools and, glass objects and heavy objects and build forts up trees. That's kind of the point, right? Is
Mm.
it's like Lord of the Flies in a somewhat loosely managed environment. But anyway, yeah. All right. Have a good week, TK. Thank you.
Thanks, Cam. Bye.